Hello everyone. Today we are going to do an experiment to test for air quality. To start the procedure, you are going to need an empty dried milk carton, string, scissors, Vaseline, or in this case Aquaphor, but they both serve the same purpose, a permanent marker, and a hole punch, and possibly a ruler if you want to make it exact. So to start out, you are going to cut along the seams of your milk carton so that you have 4 pieces. Okay, so once you have your 4 pieces, you are going to cut each one of those into 3 pieces, and they'll be about 3 inches by 3 inches each. Alright, so once you have all of your pieces, you are going to hole punch a hole in the top of each one. All of your pieces hole punched, you are going to take your strings, and I cut them into 12 pieces, and you are just going to loop the string like that so that you can tie it to a tree. Next, you are going to choose your locations. This could be, for example, your park, your house, your yard, or your school. So for my 4 locations, I am doing my backyard, Spring Grove Cemetery and Arboretum in the wooded area, the Cincinnati Lunken Airport, and the University of Cincinnati. So you are going to make a chart like this to keep track of your data. You will just put all of your locations, square 1, square 2, and square 3 for each location so that you can total up the particles that you find after the experiment. Next, you are going to draw a 1 by 1 inch square in the center of each of your squares using a permanent marker. Then you're going to write the location on all 3 squares for each of the 4 locations at the bottom of the square. Once you have all 3 squares prepared for each location, you can head out to your first location. So we are going to start at the University of Cincinnati. So when you go out to your locations, all you need to bring are your squares and your Vaseline, or in this case, Aquaphor. So then you're going to hang all 3 of your squares at each location, and then you're going to spread a thin layer of Vaseline on the center of the square. After you hang all 3 squares at your first location, time to go to the second location. I am now at location 2, Spring Grove Cemetery and Arboretum in the wooded areas, and I'm going to hang 3 more squares. I am now at the third location, Lunken Airport, across from the parking lot in a little wooded side area. I'm now at the 4th location, my backyard, and I'm going to hang the last 3 samples. So now that all 12 collection squares are hanging at the 4 locations, I'm going to wait 5 days and then go back to each location and collect the data. So it's now been 5 days since I put up the collection squares, so I am headed to each location now to collect all the data. I just got to UC, and unfortunately, one of the collection squares had fallen, probably because of the strong winds we've been having, but the other 2 were still on the trees intact. So I am at Lunken Airport right now, and I just got out to gather the collection squares. However, I could only find 2 of them. I'm not sure if one of them fell off and blew away, and I couldn't find it because I searched everywhere, or someone took it off. So now I only have 2 for that site. So between only having 2 for the Lunken Airport and only having 2 for UC, since one of them had fallen off onto the ground, I am going to adjust the experiment slightly and do the average of 2 collection squares at each site. All right, so now that we finished the experiment, we are going to analyze and discuss the results and talk about why or what the whole point of this experiment was. So what is air quality? Air quality is the degree of how clean or polluted the air is. And then particulate matter, which is what we tested for in this experiment, also known as particle pollution, or PM, is a complex mixture of extremely small particles and liquid droplets. It can be made up of many components such as acids, organic chemicals, metals, soil, or dust particles. So higher levels of pollution in the air, including PM, results in lower air quality. So why does this matter? Poor air quality due to high levels of pollution can lead to adverse health effects such as lung diseases, cardiovascular disease, lung cancer, asthma attacks for those who have asthma, itchy eyes, runny nose, persistent cough, etc. And overall, air pollution is harmful to plants, animals, and our ecosystems. So this is our final results from the experiment. The averages are highlighted at the bottom. My backyard had 13.5 particulate matter, Spring Grove had 20, Lunken had 44.5, and UC had the most at 62. So this is a bar graph of the data for the final results. The average is on the far right, and you can see very clearly that my backyard is the lowest, and it just goes up from there to green being UC. There are a few limitations to this experiment, one being that the data was only collected at 4 locations for 5 days with 3 collection squares at each location. So to provide more reliable results or to improve results, you can use more collection squares at each location and leave them for a longer period of time. And then also you can tie them all at the same height for every collection square at every location. Because I did not do that, I just hung them up wherever was feasible, but the ones that were lower most likely had more particulate matter from the ground, whereas the ones that are higher up did not. And then also human error when counting the number of particulate matter on the squares, and environmental limitations such as weather, such as when the strong winds that we had, I think like a couple of the days during the experiment, and it knocked down one of the collection squares on the ground and possibly knocked down and blew away another. So the analysis of our results. So the location with the most particulate matter was UC, followed by Lunken, then Spring Grove, and lastly my backyard. So I expected Lunken to have more particulate matter than UC, but I'm not surprised that Lunken and UC had more particulate matter than Spring Grove and my backyard, because UC is surrounded by automobile exhaust, buildings, and construction, and Lunken is also surrounded by pollution from the airplanes and the busy roads right nearby. And while Spring Grove has over 300 acres of undeveloped forested areas and is far away from developed areas, and roads and construction. And then my backyard, although not a forested area, has more vegetation than especially Lunken. And it's also situated away from heavy automobile traffic and other forms of pollution. So it makes sense that Spring Grove and my backyard had less particulate matter than Lunken and UC. So in conclusion, the results show that UC had the most particulate matter, thus is likely to have poor air quality, which can lead to adverse health effects with prolonged exposure. And my backyard had the least amount of particulate matter, thus is likely to have better air quality and is less likely to cause adverse health effects. So how can we improve air quality in areas where air quality is poor, or just in general? So we can reduce the number of trips that we take in our cars. We can plant native trees and other native vegetation. We can eliminate single-use plastic, and we can avoid burning leaves, trash, and other materials. So how can we protect ourselves against poor air quality? So when air quality is poor, it is important to take extra precautions to protect yourself. You can do this by checking the daily pollution forecasts in your area so you know what to expect. And if pollution levels are high, you should avoid outdoor activities, and you should avoid outdoor activities near high traffic areas. And you could also wear a mask outside when air pollution levels are high. And those are my sources.